Vaccine mandate fights come to an end at the State House, for now. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Andy Chow, State House reporter for Ohio Public Radio, Bob Clegg, Republican strategist, and Desiree Tims, president of Innovation Ohio. For the second time this fall, Republican lawmakers tried to find a way to limit COVID-19 vaccine mandates. But once again, they could not agree on how to do it. One side of the Republican House wants to ban public and private mandates altogether. The other side wants to give businesses the freedom to require what they want of their workers. After the last attempt at compromise failed, House Speaker Bob Cupp said, I'm done.
I think we put in countless hours, not only weeks, but months on this bill with all kinds of input. And so it's time now to move on to other important topics that are facing Ohioans and are before the state legislature.
Does that mean the bill is dead?
We're going to be moving on to other topics now.
Andy Chow, is this the end of the COVID-related lawmaking at the State House at this point?
Right now it is. Who knows? I mean, any given hour it could change. We saw that was what House Speaker Bob Cupp had said. And then the next day, the chair of the House Health Committee said that they wanted to hold another hearing on the ban on all vaccine mandates. And then once again, Speaker Bob Cupp had to come out and say, no, you've got to cancel that meeting. That hearing cannot happen. So there's definitely infighting within the House Republican caucus right now as to where to go. Some people want to forget the issue, move on to other things like sports betting, and other people say that this is all they want to focus on right now because they believe it's the most pressing issue that's facing the state.
Bob Clegg, why couldn't they come up with a compromise? This legislature's, been pretty uniform in their previous votes on health requirements and health mandates, and this one they couldn't come to an agreement on.
No, like Andy said, I mean, they just could not come to any consensus within the House Republican caucus. Obviously, Democrat side would be totally against anything that they may try to do. So they had to make sure they had, pretty much the caucus all in line with whatever piece of legislation was going to be put forward, and they just couldn't get there. I think, you had outside entities like the Ohio Chamber of Commerce and others who were not thrilled about this bill. And I think that played some part in some of the House Republican members in their thinking about it. So I think the speaker was smart, though. Speaker Cupp was smart to just say, hey, this we can't get any consensus. Let's just move on and start dealing with other issues that are equal, if not greater importance.
Bob, does this show, because the far right has been pretty powerful in the state legislature for the past 8 or 10 years. Does this show the more business-friendly side of the Republican Party, perhaps you could call the more moderate side of the Republican Party, showed some strength in this debate?
Well, I mean, when you have so many, the Republicans have 60-some members. If you have 15 of them not willing to go along with a piece of legislation, it's dead. So you don't have to have that many members in the caucus to stop legislation. I think it's a whole range of beliefs on this issue. And sure, there are some that probably aren't as strongly in favor of these kinds of bans than others. And at this point in time, they just couldn't get a majority in the caucus to agree on what they want to do.
Desiree Tims, where were Democrats during all this? Were they bystanders? Were they spoilers? How do you see the role they played in this?
I think Democrats have been strong champions of vaccine mandates and ensuring that everyone has an opportunity to get a shot. Look, I'm thrilled that this legislation is dead. I hope it is as dead as the impact it would have had on the public if it were to pass into law. And so we know that vaccines work. We're still trying to fight our way through COVID, and legislators should be focused on defeating COVID-19 and getting us back on track and back to normal, and not spending time on banning vaccine mandates when we know vaccines work.
Andy Chow, we're still waiting for the federal vaccine mandate that President Biden proposed several weeks ago to kick in. He still hasn't set a date for when this might start. Is that another time to watch when the lawmakers might say if the federal government starts requiring companies of 100 employees or more to get the vaccine, then it might be rekindled at the State House?
Well, that was really the storm that House Republicans were keeping an eye on this whole time. That was sort of the reason why they really wanted to kind of push this forward, because they thought it was this pressing issue. But the other thing they had to realize is that without a big majority to pass an emergency clause, anything that they passed would have to wait 90 days. And at that point, we're looking at sometime in the new year when this bill would actually go into law. And so with that Biden rule coming down the pipe, it really wouldn't have impacted people in Ohio. The vaccine exemptions or any sort of ban on vaccine mandates wouldn't have impacted people in Ohio when it came to the Biden rule until 90 days from now. And so that was one of the big things that they were fighting all along. And I think what we're seeing now is that, 2 years ago, before the COVID-19 pandemic, there were some Republicans in the Ohio House that wanted to work on vaccine issues to find a way to limit, restrict, or ban vaccine mandates. But it was a very small group of the House Republicans. It did get a little bit larger because of the COVID-19 issue. But what I think we're seeing right now is a sort of resettling of the dust where most of the Republicans are going back to the middle on this issue.
Yeah, this issue likely will, even though Bob Cupp says we're done for now, I think you're right, it's not going to be gone for forever anyway. There is another proposal to legalize marijuana for every Ohio adult, not just for those with a medical reason to use it. For the first time, a pair of Republicans has proposed it. State Reps Jamie Callender and Ron Ferguson want to legalize marijuana for anyone 21 and older. They basically want to expand the current medical marijuana system, and they want to tax sales of marijuana at 10%. The problem is the House Speaker, the Senate President, the Governor, and all but a few of their Republican colleagues oppose them.
It's an uphill battle, but I think this is doable. It's about personal freedom. It's about moving the state and the country forward. It's about going where people are going anyway. Someone mentioned leadership. This is almost following, because the vast majority of Ohioans are in support of this already.
Bob Clegg, these two are very much in the minority now in the Republican caucus. Only a handful of folks would sign on to this. But this bill could gain some importance if that ballot effort gains some traction.
Well, Mike, I have my own bias in this whole issue area, because I was involved in the last ballot issue back in 2015 to legalize marijuana. And it didn't succeed, obviously. The legislature's got to ask themselves a question. Do they want to be able to control what's going to happen with the legalization of marijuana, or are they going to let somebody else take it out of their hands? And all they have to do is look at the casino issue, and they didn't really move on that. That ended up passing on a ballot issue, and a lot of them had problems with what was passed. And that's the problem. When you don't address the issue, then somebody else is going to address it. And if they can get a majority of Ohioans to vote for it, then it becomes an amendment, and there's not a lot they can do about it unless they want to try to go back in and make changes. But that's very difficult. Yeah. So that's a question they have to ask themselves.
Andy Chow, but behind the scenes, these folks aren't getting laughed off the stage, are they? There's a chance that this bill could become law if they get enough signatures to put this on the ballot.
Well, it's a good way of putting it, because just hours before Representative Callender introduced his measure, we were talking to House Speaker Bob Cupp about it. Jamie Callender was in that room, and we asked Bob Cupp, what do you think about this bill? What do you think about a member of your own party introducing a bill to legalize marijuana for personal use? And he said, I haven't even read the bill. And then you hear Representative Callender saying, you haven't even read the bill yet? And so what we have right now, we have House Democrats proposing this. We have some House Republicans proposing this. We have a citizens initiative that would be in a statute, an initiated statute. So it wouldn't go into the Constitution, but it would compel the legislators to put something into the Ohio Revised Code. So you've got these three things really just lined up on top of each other, really showing that there is momentum on this issue. But you have a couple of big goaltenders in the way. You've got Bob Cupp, who says he's not for it, and then you have Governor Mike DeWine, who says he's not for it either.
Yeah, Desiree Timms, Alabama has legalized marijuana, and so has Massachusetts, two very different states. Michigan has also legalized recreational pot. What do you make of this bill, and is it just really a matter of time before Ohio joins the 18 states that have done it?
I'm glad Republicans have finally figured out how much money Ohio is losing to Michigan. It's a shame that people can buy marijuana in the store just a few miles up the road, while other Ohioans are still being arrested and charged for the exact same substance. We've seen former Republican Speaker of the House, John Boehner, advocate for the legalization of marijuana. We've seen criminal justice reform advocates support the legalization of recreational marijuana. So I'm optimistic about our chances of getting that passed, and hopefully the rest of the Republicans will do the right thing.
Bob Clegg, as you said, you worked on the one back in 2015, and we've had the medical marijuana system in place now for several years. What have we learned from the medical marijuana system? What might Ohio do differently this time around?
Well, I think that the only reason we have medical marijuana now in Ohio is because of the issue in 2015. The legislature saw we had some pretty good arguments for legalizing marijuana, and a lot of them revolved around the medical side of it. So that finally pushed them to address at least that part of it. I think what I've seen since medical marijuana has become legal is the foot dragging by the state in the implementation of that. You can tell they really don't want to have to do this. And, we've got it in place, though, and it seems to be working fine. But it took a long time to get it going.
And there are still retail establishments that have yet to open in the medical marijuana system. Our next topic, the U.S. Senate race has been kind of quiet, but candidates looking to succeed Rob Portman are busy, mainly raising money and collecting endorsements. This week, Democrat Tim Ryan picked up the official endorsement of Senator Sherrod Brown. Ryan's competitor, Morgan Harper, says she's off to a good fundraising start. On the Republican side, businessman Bernie Moreno claims he is raising a lot of money. A lot of it's his own. J.D. Vance claims he's raising a lot of money. And this week, Josh Mandel got escorted out of a suburban Cincinnati school board meeting after he was accused of disrupting it. Desiree Timms, first to the Tim Ryan, Sherrod Brown, and Sherrod Brown endorsing Tim Ryan. No huge surprise. They're very similar politicians. It's not a big surprise that Sherrod Brown is doing it. What about the timing? Should Sherrod Brown have endorsed him this early when Tim Ryan has an opponent?
Senator Sherrod Brown is an incredibly popular senator with broad bipartisan support. I think Senator Brown's endorsement carries a lot of weight, and it was a big get for Congressman Tim Ryan to secure that endorsement so early. Look, Senator Sherrod Brown's endorsement means a lot in this state. As a past candidate myself, it's full disclosure, a former Sherrod Brown staffer. It is a coveted endorsement that everyone wants. And so congratulations to Congressman Ryan for securing that big endorsement.
Is this a way to blunt any excitement that Morgan Harper may generate in her campaign? It's still a long shot campaign, but she says she's raised $500,000 in the first 6 weeks of her campaign.
Any candidate who can raise money has a shot. And so don't take Morgan Harper for granted. I'm excited that we have a primary, and it's going to make our final candidate that much sharper and stronger on the issues.
Bob Clegg, Bernie Moreno says he's raised $3.7 million, but apparently $3 million of that is money he has loaned himself. How do you make up the fundraising numbers as they're coming in now? J.D. Vance, almost $2 million.
Well, it seems like the guys that have money, the guys and girls, because we have that on our side too. The ones that have money are putting their money in it, which is smart. The ones that don't have any money to put in are raising money, but not at that, much of a clip, but you wouldn't expect it because, Bernie Moreno, nobody knows who he is. I mean, the average Republican contributor, plus we have so many candidates on our side running that, the pot of Republican contributors is only so big. And it's going to be tough for any one of those candidates to get that large of a share of Republican contributors. But I mean, I'm happy we have that many running because obviously they all think we have a really good, and I do too, that we have a really good chance of holding this seat. So it's like once in a lifetime situation for a Republican politician.
Andy Chow, we will get the official campaign finance numbers later on Friday when we record this on Friday afternoon. But the fact that these candidates, that there's still a crowded field and they're all claiming to be raising money at a decent clip, that leads to think that they're going to stay in for a while. All of them are going to stay in for a while. It's going to be crowded for a while.
Yeah, and usually in the past we do see candidates who jump in and they say, "Oh, I'm going to loan myself money. I'm going to put my own money into this," and they never do. So the fact that you do have several candidates running for the Senate who are really putting their money where their mouth is at this point does show how serious they are. And I do wonder how important they believe the campaign finance issue is going to be when it comes to maybe attracting the potential endorsement from former President Donald Trump. Maybe whoever raises the most, they might be able to think that they can be the biggest sell to get that coveted endorsement from the Republican Party. And so what you do see is people like Moreno, JD Vance, putting in their own money. You have Josh Mandel, who's known for being a very hard worker when it comes to campaigning. He's going around knocking on doors. So you have a lot of people really putting in the work so early in on this race. And you mentioned with Tim Ryan getting the endorsement over Morgan Harper, the fact that Sherrod Brown came out so early and said, "Hey, this is the person I'm going to endorse," right before the campaign finance deadline, which might have been maybe a big boost in the numbers at the end too, is really telling at how seriously they're taking this race on that side as well.
Yeah. Bob Clegg, Josh Mandel, biggest name recognition on the GOP side in all likelihood, but he's the rebel. He's tweeting some stuff that's very controversial, many times false. He went to the school board meeting, wanted to talk about critical race theory, masks, checkbook system that he implemented when he was treasurer. I forget what he wanted to talk about, but he was escorted out. He was videotaping the whole thing. Does this kind of stuff help or hurt his campaign in the long run?
Well, Mike, if you're running for office, you want your name out there, okay, one way or the other. And he's already got all the candidates on our side. He's got the best name ID of all of them. And, as Andy talked about, the endorsement from President Trump, well, we could have a situation where President Trump doesn't endorse in this race. And if he doesn't, then I think Josh Mandel's probably best placed to win it, because he's run statewide twice already and won both times. And he, as you know, he does a good job of keeping his name out there. Yep. So if this is going to be based on who has the best name ID, he's out in front on that part.
The more controversial, probably the more likable he is to President Trump. Maybe that's his tactic. Anyway, the redistricting process has gone silent. The special commission has until the end of the month to try to come up with a congressional district map that Democrats will accept. Otherwise, the process goes back to the legislature. On the sidelines, Republicans say Supreme Court Justice Jennifer Brunner should recuse herself from a case challenging the state legislative maps. The state GOP says Brunner, a Democrat, campaigned on the issue last year, and that should disqualify her from this case. This comes after Justice Pat DeWine, a Republican and the son of the governor, refused to recuse himself from the case, even though Mike DeWine is a defendant in the case. Desiree Timms, first to Jennifer Brunner. She did mention this during the campaign. She said she wanted to have fair maps. It was an issue in the campaign when she ran for Supreme Court. Should that disqualify her from ruling on it?
Absolutely not. I think that claim is laughable, given that Governor DeWine's son is also a Supreme Court justice and refuses to recuse himself. Everyone should support fair maps, regardless of your party. Everyone should support the idea that we should ban gerrymandering. It's why Ohioans voted for a fair process time and time again. And so I think that outrageous claim is absolutely laughable.
Bob Clegg, is this just a way to sort of blunt the criticism that Pat DeWine is facing for not recusing himself by saying that Jennifer Brunner now should recuse herself?
Well, I think what the thing about Jennifer Brunner was the fact that Eric Holder did fundraising for her Supreme Court race, and he is front and center. His main battle right now is trying to get more Democrat lines in a lot of these Republican states. So that's why they're saying she should recuse herself. But yeah, I mean, let's get honest here. Jennifer Brunner is going to vote for what she thinks will help get better Democrat lines. Pat DeWine's going to vote for what he feels are going to be best for Republican lines. Okay, one's a Democrat, one's a Republican. I'm glad the state has gotten rid of this charade, and we're now going to have party labels on Supreme Court candidates because they are partisan. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. Not this judging by what is legal and fair. Come on, they're partisans. They are, and they're acting that way. And they run for election as partisans. That's why Eric Holder is fundraising for Jennifer Brunner. That's why Mike DeWine helped his son fundraise on his race. Yeah. Let's just admit it and move on.
Yeah. Andy Chow, what are you hearing about the redistricting process? It's now in the hands of the Redistricting Commission. They're supposed to have until Halloween, oddly enough, to come up with maps. Will they be as scary to Democrats as the last ones?
Yeah, will there be a trick or a treat? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah, so, so to kind of also clarify, when we're talking about the current cases that are sitting in the Ohio Supreme Court, that's over the state legislative districts. And now the Ohio Redistricting Committee is looking at drawing the congressional district lines, and that's the due date that they have by the end of this month. And so we've talked to Speaker Bob Cupp. Once again, his name is coming up. We talked to him about this. He is the co-chair of the Ohio Redistricting Committee. He's the one who can call everybody together along with Democratic Senator Vernon Sykes. And Cupp is saying that he is not going to call the Ohio Redistricting Commission together until they actually have a map to work on. Now, in the past, it's been the Republicans in the House and Senate caucuses creating a map and then proposing it to the commission. It seems like that's the route they're going to go this time. Last time with state legislative maps, they held a bunch of hearings first and then had some maps introduced. This time around, he says he doesn't want to bring everybody to the table unless they actually have a proposal in front of them.
Okay. It appears Delaware County Commissioners want nothing to do with solar energy. As first reported by the Columbus Dispatch, the county is moving to take advantage of a new state law that allows commissioners to stop solar or wind farms. Commissioners cited development and environmental reasons, and they fear a lack of Ohio sunshine. Environmental activists say the move could cost the county tax dollars and landowners a guaranteed source of income. Andy Chow, is Delaware County the first of many counties to take advantage of this law, do you think?
Well, it's still yet to be seen, but the interesting thing here is that when the bill was in the state house, most of the counties that were fighting for this came from the northeast part of Ohio that see a lot of wind turbines and wind farms being put up in their area. And really the idea of solar farms wasn't that controversial, and it hasn't been that controversial. So the fact that not a Northeast Ohio county, but a Central Ohio county like Delaware coming in and using the law created through Senate Bill 52 to stop a solar farm is a pretty interesting development. And, you know, a lot of people are looking at this. People around the country who are into the renewable energy industry are looking at Ohio and looking at how these laws are applied to say, is Ohio really the best place to come in and invest? And the fact that, again, a Central Ohio county creating an area to not allow a solar farm is a pretty interesting development.
Bob Clegg, is this a little short-sighted on Delaware's part? Are they perhaps giving up a lot of tax money? Maybe a company like Facebook or Amazon would locate in Delaware County if there was a solar farm next door?
Well, you know, they tried to do an Amazon facility in Delaware County, and the area where they were going to do it, the residents, you know, were fighting it, and they ended up not doing it. Delaware County is one of those counties that really doesn't need the tax revenue that much because, you know, the southern portion is very booming. And so the whole county commissioners, I mean, one of their prime responsibilities is county development. And that includes the farmland that's up north in Delaware County. So they're within their right to do something like this. I just don't, the only thing I don't like is I don't like people who own land being told what they can do with it. And that's just me. I don't like government telling people what they can do with land that they own. Okay. But that's my only problem.
It's time now for our final off-the-record parting shots. And Desiree Timms, we'll start with you.
Yeah, this week, Ohio State Board of Education rejected and repealed an anti-racism resolution. And we're seeing this happen all across the state with extremists running for school boards in the name of being anti-critical race theorists. it's important now to vote in local elections. Vote now or vote on November 2nd of this year and vote all the way down your ballot. We need to make sure we're protecting our communities from this far right extremist agenda.
Okay. And Bob Clegg, your final thought.
This week we had two economic statistics that came out. One being that inflation from the last year is now 5.4%, the highest in over 13 years. And 4.3 million people quit their jobs in the month of August. We have some critical economic issues with inflation, worker shortage that Washington just doesn't seem to want to deal with or even admit exist.
Okay. Andy Chow, your final thought.
The Ohio Supreme Court once again came down with a ruling that sort of untethers a decision that allowed First Energy to create something that the Ohio Supreme Court said was not good for consumers. This is the third time in 3 years something like this has happened. With the Department of Justice looking into the bribery case, I think we're seeing a lot of the policies that we've seen over the years created for First Energy sort of go away.
Okay. It's been 2 years, but runners will be back on the Columbus Marathon course this weekend. Good luck to all those running, both the full and the half marathons. And congrats to the organizers of the marathon for doing their best to keep everyone safe, both runners and spectators. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online. You can watch every episode on demand at wosu.org/COTR. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.